I have been reeling here, Stugotz, because I genuinely, as I was answering these questions from Mike Ryan, was thinking to myself, if Michael K. hears this, that's going to hurt him and me. And so I want to answer the question honestly, but should I answer the question honestly? And the thing I regret not having done is when I was cataloging on Mitch album, I did not ask the question out loud that I wanted to, which is, how many of my other old sports writer friends are still alive?
You can't play who's going to be there with the funeral. You go or you don't go.
No, I think you can. I think on this line you can. I understand what you're saying, Jessica, but what I'm saying is one of the things that makes this game show so rich is because you can play that game.
So you're saying on someone like Tellender, you're calling Mitch Albom, you're calling Bob Ryan, you're calling certain people to see if they're attending?
No, I already said
you're attending Bob Ryan.
I already said on Tellender I'm out.
Stop ruining future contestants. It's not as deep of a pool as you might think it is.
It's hard to get them right on the line.
Right.
And Mike has gotten them right on the line with me. He doesn't know Samson well enough, evidently, because Donald Fear is not a good choice and just a funny name to say.
I had him on. Well, that's also part of it, too. It's basically a 50-50 proposition. I need a name that's on the line, but also a name that'll make you laugh. So a name that'll make you laugh and think. Matt Roebuck, to those in the know, hilarious name. Yeah. Maybe not so much of the audience, but for Dan's list, I was on it this week.
I would just say yes to all of them.
Yeah, that's why you don't play with you.
Right. You don't have to call them afterwards. I mean, they're never going to know.
Yeah, but that's why I don't play the game with you.
You're no good at this game because you're a liar.
Yeah, because Samson and Dan, they don't care about the ramifications.
But I do care about the ramifications, but the most important thing is to make sure to answer the question honestly so that the game show can work.
Right, you don't care about them enough to be dishonest.
That's right, because if I'm saying yes, I ruin the game. People were like, "Well, I can feel them. They're breathing on my neck all the time. It's not as good as it was last week.
Yeah.
It was so much funnier last week." Well, yes, we were saying yes. We were saying that, yes, I would attend the funeral of Mitch Albom, but is Kornheiser still alive? Because I'd like to see Kornheiser. Let's do the stat of the day.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day.
Stat of the day is brought to you by ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Courtesy of ESPN Stats and Info, Doc Rivers has now lost 7 of his last 8 opportunities to close out a series. His 31 such losses in those games are already the most by a coach in NBA history.
I love that Doc sound yesterday, Stugotz, because I don't know what's going to happen today, but Embiid's ligament being a problem and James Harden not looking as quick and explosive and efficient as he used to after the reporting that Matt Sullivan did on the Nets and the reveal yesterday on the show that what happened very quickly with the Nets is that Harden was on the star train of just showing up and doing whatever he wanted to, like never mind massage tables, taking care of the body, and he was just fat by NBA standards. They're not in shape. And you arrive here, Mike, with this stat of the day.
Oh, Dan, I was loving what I was seeing from Sixers practice yesterday. Oh, they were saying all the wrong things. And here's that sound from Doc Rivers that went kind of viral. Let's listen to Doc.
So good.
Well, it's easy to use me as an example, but I wish y'all would tell the whole story with me, all right? My Orlando team was the HC. No one gives me credit for getting up against the Pistons who won the title. That was an HC. Go look at I want you to go back and look at that roster. I dare you to go back and look at that roster, and you would say, what a hell of a coaching job. Really. I mean, the Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first 2 games and was playing on one leg. And we didn't have home court. And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that. Now, it was in the bubble. and anything can happen in the bubble. There's no home court. Game 7 would have been in L.A., you know.
You would have blown it there.
It just happens. So I would say with me, some of them is I got to do better always. I always take my own responsibility. And then some of it is circumstances happen. You know, this one, let's win it, and we don't have to talk about it.
Oh, what a loser. Loser mentality. By the way, that Piston team did not win the championship. It got swept by the Nets. Kevin Clark, who grew up a Magic fan, had this observation. Doc also lost in the first round to the Bucks and Hornets while coaching Tracy McGrady. Then he got fired after starting the 2003-04 season 1-10. He overachieved exactly once with the Magic in 2000. Calling Pat Garrity and Darrell Armstrong losers doesn't make you a good coach.
The Miami Heat folks have always thought that Doc Rivers is a very charming person who will make his way throughout the NBA circles, but they have not feared him as a leader mastermind. And that context offering that's defensive and will look scared if they lose tonight, will look and sound more scared if they don't get out of this series. But Doc Rivers has had some historic failures. You heard the stat that he's done a lot of losing.
Well, anything could happen in the bubble.
But he's trying to offer the context. You too would try to defend yourself if you have hopped from place to place. You get good jobs. You always get good jobs. And this would be, one would assume, the end of it, unless he can hop on the LeBron train or the Lakers. If there's one more hop to be made here, because this is the ends of the fruit on whatever it is you get when you get Doc Rivers.
But when you get defensive, you're defending yourself, right? Like it's like you start, it seems like you're agreeing with what people are saying. Like they're in your head. Like if you think you're a great coach, you think you're a great coach, and you pay no attention to this. He's won a title. He said what he had to say. Like, if you think you're a great coach, I don't think you have to be defensive here.
No, but Stugotz, you're saying, think of it if it were you.
Yeah.
Just make it you. Do you think you'll take historic losses? This dude's a loser. He loses like no one loses in coaching. Do you think you just keep eating that?
I'd show him my ring. That's what I would do. I've won an NBA championship. I have a ring. There aren't many people on the earth who have an NBA championship ring as a coach. That's what I would do. I would throw down Orlando. I do love that he is daring you to look at the Orlando roster as if something bad would happen to you if you did.
Well, let's look at that roster. I do want to go over that roster because he did that. That's the part that to players is ugly, right? Like, really, you're going to do that to the guys who played for you?
I mean, it was a 1-seed Pistons, but he also made it the champion Pistons, and that wasn't the team with Rasheed Wallace.
I mean, you're surprised he threw Ben Simmons under the bus. I mean,
yeah, Doc has flashed this, and I can only imagine what it is behind the scenes with Doc. Him giving voice to it, speaking that way, just proves that there's an insecurity there, and there damn well should be. He's had a lot of disappointments. No one is better at choking in the playoffs than Doc Rivers. You just do not give up 3-1 leads. If he finds a way to give up a 3-0 lead and be the first to do so, I mean, that's his masterpiece right there. And it'd probably get him fired from Philadelphia, which, if you listen to Basketball Illuminati, might be the end game Spence anyways.
I will say, he does have a point about the 03 one. This 03 Magic team, disgusting. Woof.
Are you okay? I mean,
Tony's like back there saying disgusting, so like if somebody was shitting in the corner of a train.
I just pulled up a Game 6 box score. The starting lineup: Tracy McGrady plays all but 26 seconds in the game. Gordon Giracek.
Oh God.
Drew Gooden, Jacques Vaughn, and Andrew DeClercq.
Oh my God!
Whoa.
Wow, he's right. I mean,
coming off the bench, Darrell Armstrong, Pat Garrity,
it is
Chris
McGrady
Whitney,
though. It is McGrady though,
and the remains of Sean Kemp.
I gotta tell you, back then, Drew Gooden and Tracy McGrady was not a bad pairing. It's not as bad of a team as you made it sound.
It's pretty bad.
It's still McGrady. It's one of the great scorers.
Yeah, McGrady's one of the great two guards of all time.
Half of these names could be made up, and I would have no idea.
Well, the Andrew DeClercq one was.
By the way, that was Drew Gooden's rookie season. It's not like it was not like prime Drew Gooden.
Yeah, but
what is prime Drew Gooden
to accomplish?
It's a good question. It's a good question. And Andrew DeClercq,
Jess doesn't remember who Drew Gooden was. He had inexplicably just a little rat tail. little rat tail when he was with the Cavs. Some bad Cavs overachieving LeBron teams.
You're making him more boozer. I don't believe that the pairing was seen as Tracy McGrady and anybody.
I'm saying Drew Gooden wasn't a bad NBA pro.
But it wasn't. That wasn't the
Wasn't a
1-2
good
punch
one
you
either.
were headed into the playoffs with. Nobody was saying, and here comes Tracy McGrady and Drew Gooden.
Look, man, you're grasping at straws.
Hold on a second. I just Googled Drew Gooden. He's not even NBA Drew Gooden isn't even the first Drew Gooden that comes up on Wikipedia. There's a famous YouTuber named Drew Gooden who has the first billing on
Does
Google.
he have a rat tail?
Regardless, Tracy McGrady
I was
is
like, that guy doesn't look like
is a
he plays
historic
basketball.
player, and if you have one of those, you generally tend to make the playoffs, even if you have Andrew DeClerc on your roster.
What you're telling me is he found a way to blow a 3-1 lead with Tracy McGrady on his roster.
When I think of a non-stretch four, I think of Drew Gooden.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
He can bury mid range.
But what exactly is the Drew Gooden prime? Like Whittingham is acting like there's
Cleveland.
something better out there. I mean,
He could hurt you from the elbow. You don't want to leave him open.
Listen to me.
Put it on the pole. Would Drew Gooden hurt you from the elbow?
Yeah, put that on the pole. But also, are you winning anything in the playoffs if you go into the playoffs with Tracy McGrady and he'll hurt you from the elbow?
I will say Drew Gooden was on the NBA All-Rookie First Team in 2003, so maybe that was his prime.
Regardless, we've done enough Drew Gooden talk.
Not enough for
You
my
never
liking.
know where we'll end up, huh?
Yeah.
It's wild.
The funnier part of this is
One last thing. That is super weak to throw that roster under the bus to lift yourself up and do the bubble like, oh, that would have been in Los Angeles. Man, it's just a shitty look from Doc
you say
Rivers.
it's weak, and what I'm saying to you is how often I find that these people who are in a position of leadership and you think they are in control management style because they always have been, that sometimes they want to defend themselves because they are weak in some of these places too. Like, he knows he won a championship, but he also knows what the stakes are tonight. He used to be a player. These guys are all control freaks who, when the tip happens, start to lose control because he cannot control what's happening with Embiid's hand, and he cannot control what's happening with the fitness level or the efficiency of James Harden. He could keep trying to put them in better and better positions,
right.
but right now we all see, all of us are watching, and this is where the pressure ratchets up because Philadelphia is waiting and his job is on the line. And while they get fired all the time, Doc's job is on the line. If he embarrasses himself here, I'm not sure LeBron wants him or anybody else. Like, you can say if this one gets botched, like, why do I want that in the playoffs?
yeah, but I still think he'll get an opportunity with LA. You say a lot's on the line. I think Doc says, hey, if they lose, they have a game 7 at home. Secondly, if they lose the series, he's going to end up in LA.
Mike mentioned basketball Illuminati, and you should see what it is that they're saying about not just what he's talking about, but also with Charlotte and Michael Jordan hiring just so many people in that building that are just Michael Jordan people, literal family. He's got his family around, and they're the ones running the organization. Doc Rivers has navigated the relationship business of basketball very well, and maybe he will get other chances. But what's on the line tonight is you've got the 2 stars. Nobody thinks Siakam can beat the 2 stars. No. You could talk about, I like Toronto, I like Scotty Barnes, they're better than you think they are. I would love to see what this would look like if they were totally healthy. I don't know how Scotty Barnes goes from hobbled and not looking right at all to these 2 teams aren't separated by that much if Scotty Barnes is healthy.
And look who's initiating their offense right now because Van Vliet is out. That's their current all-star. Siakam fell back a little bit. Van Vliet's their most important player. He was awful all series long, finally hurt. They've won these 2 games. I know Van Vliet tore his jersey and was out the remainder of that game. They've had to figure it out without him. This would be the worst loss on his career. And if you listen to that Basketball Illuminati featuring Waz, who guested on one episode that gave you insight, you could see this coming with the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers only have a 3-2 lead in this series because they caught a break with the injury situation of Toronto. Because I left that episode thinking this was going to be a disaster. They caught a lucky break. Now all they got to do is win one more game against an obviously hobbled, less than 100% Toronto Raptor team. If they find a way to blow this, maybe you're right. Because that would stain Doc to the point that even LeBron doesn't have the greatest judgment. Maybe I'm out. I can't exactly do this right now.
This is a fairly human thing for Doc to be doing with the PR part of this game, no matter how much it lacks in accountability, which is what you want from your leaders, Stugotz. Well, the point I was about to make about when these guys are in charge, you don't want them to be the guy who makes what gets filed in that locker room, even though you think they're explanations, as excuses.
Right.
Because it's a results business. It's a business. The measurement, ultimately, it doesn't make sense to me why it is Michael Jordan would fire his coach. They have improved the last couple of years. I thought we were in the results business.
Yes.
And when the Illuminati start studying this stuff, they're like, well, either you're an insider or an outsider with Michael Jordan. He will hire his guys, his people. And what I'm telling you is that Doc Rivers has gone from player to coach as an insider. He's got all these relationships. As you see, the Knicks are run by one agency, and the Lakers are now run by another agency, and they're just the agencies of these star players. Doc Rivers has been a star coach for a long time, but those are epic failures. Those are epic results that are on his tombstone.
But he also has a championship. And so I know there's some terrible losses in there. He's very well liked inside the NBA circles.
Frank Vogel has a championship.
I know, and that's why he'll get another job. That's why he's respected as an NBA coach. Dan, what stands out to me with all that stuff with Doc Rivers, really, if I'm a player, if I'm LeBron James, is the lack of accountability and the lack of leadership. That's what stands out to me when he does that, when he throws Ben Simmons under the bus, when he uses his players like, hey, look what I did with those guys as an 8 seed.
Stugotz.
That's not what I want to hear if I'm an NBA player.
Stugotz, what you're saying is exactly right. And there has been a glaring lack of leadership from Doc Rivers this year because he apparently doesn't want to be there. But he also doesn't want to just give away $30 million. He wants to not be there, get fired, get all his money, and then play golf.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the report that Shams had this week, Stugotz, which I think we sort of skipped past and glossed over, not just us, but everybody. If we're going to cover the Nets and we're going to cover mental health and we're going to spend a whole season talking about Ben Simmons, the reporting that provides the details of Ben Simmons had a mental block that's causing his back to hurt is reporting that pins down, as nebulous as mental health stuff can be, this dude is still short-circuited when it comes to playing basketball, and the anxiety and the pressure that comes with basketball that's built into basketball. The report, if that's true, that his back hurts because he's got a mental block, he thinks he's in physical pain. The last time we saw this dude, he could not play basketball. He was on a court, and he was scared to dunk on Trae Young.
Right.
On Trae Young. The last time we saw this dude playing basketball, he short-circuited like Rick Ankiel. He had the yips in a way you never see in basketball. So when the report comes out, he had a mental block. He couldn't play. And Reggie Miller is like, you have no competitive fire. Do you not think that bears more examination?
Of course it does.
He's been out for a really long time with the mental stuff and this back thing that popped up. It was circulating on Twitter yesterday that Tiger Woods almost lost a leg and came back to competitive golf quicker than it was the last time we saw Ben Simmons play basketball.
Can we talk, though, about the idea that somebody Ben Simmons' age coming up through the pipeline of whatever this new generation of athlete is can say to professional old people like Doc Rivers and others who are running the sport, hey, anxiety isn't part of the job for me. Like, I don't want to be working in a space. And their answer would be, well, be professional. You're making $20 million a year. It is the job of every professional athlete to be available and to deal with this anxiety. And his response is, hey, my anxiety is affecting my mental health, which is affecting my physical health. My back doesn't work. I cannot play.
People don't understand that, though, Dan. They've never been through it.
They
should be more sympathetic
I think
towards
the problem here, though, Dan, is that the Nets aren't understanding it either.
Yes.
Because the dialogue isn't exactly there. The transparency regarding whatever it is Ben Simmons is going through mentally doesn't appear to be there for the Nets because they were blindsided by this.
I am asking everybody here, as we have obsessed over a guy who's not playing basketball. One of the great moments of the last month is Ben Simmons returns to Philadelphia, gets on a bus, and sits on the sidelines. What I'm asking you is that this guy is a superstar. He's got a name, an association, young people transcend it. Are we handing the league over to guys like this as the blockbuster trade is made between Philadelphia and Brooklyn for, Game of Thrones? Does the audience care at all that the report was mental block, which is broad, Stugotz, but mental block is not physical, and this was a person, a human being who could not play basketball, and then the volume rises on the culture around him where, of course, Reggie Miller and Stephen A. Smith, and you coward. Like they want to be like, anxiety's part of this. That's part of how you get to be an athlete and brave, and everybody wants to be you, and they celebrate you, and they wear your jerseys to be a part of their identity. That guy cares. That guy will tear my face off. That guy has such fire. And Ben Simmons is like, and now he's asking, and now the reporting is mental block. I'm asking you guys, how am I supposed to cover all of this? How are we supposed to find the human being in the middle of that when it seems like a basketball player has the yips, and the latest reporting from the guy who's the insider now is telling you mental block kept him from playing. I'm legitimately not sure how to cover any of that when you've got a human being at the center of that, and he's got to be professional, and anxiety is supposed to be a part of this job. But what if the mental health conversation now revolves that the basketball players have started, and that Adam Silver says is because his players are unhappy. His players are unhappy. Right. No, anxiety doesn't have to be a part of my job.
I think anxiety affects people differently, and it's clearly affecting Ben Simmons differently. And unless you've been through it, you have no idea what's going on. But I'm trying to make myself like a Sixers fan and wonder if I'd be upset with Ben Simmons not playing.
Of course.
I think I probably would.
But Stugotz, everybody listening to this
but
is
I'm not certain that's the right reaction,
I think people applaud Reggie Miller and Stephen A. Smith with, get your ass on the court, you coward. Like some version of it. You're pathetic.
But I used to think that way until I spoke to Marty Fish, and he's telling me stories about the anxiety is so bad he couldn't get out of his car to play Roger Federer.
You still think that way and are just saying the correct thing. You want to be like, get your ass on the court. Ben Simmons.
Marty Fish also told plenty of stories where he overcame anxiety attacks while he was playing.
I know.
Yeah, and
but Ben's not there yet.
And there were just certain times that Marty shut it down. You can perform with anxiety. You can perform at a high level, and you can overcome. I think what makes Ben Simmons so tricky to have the mental health discussion is the perception is from all outsiders is that this is cited at awfully convenient times. And look, anxiety is an inconvenience, but it peeks its ugly head when he has to report to Sixers camp. Then we don't hear anything about it. There's no transparency there. We're hearing nothing from Ben Simmons. The Nets are not giving us any insight into what's going on. Then all of a sudden, he's supposed to come back for Game 4. Nets are blindsided, according to reporting from Brian Windhorst. It's happening at far too convenient times for those that want to take shots at Ben Simmons.
It's very clear that he had a mental block and is trying to basically overcome the entire construct of professional sports. But it is still, I do think money plays a role here. He's making $35 million.
I hate that we're counting other people's money though. Like,
but it's out there.
$35 million doesn't like cure you of all of your.
But he's trying to tell you how fans think. I
agree though. But
I think fans are counting people's money.
No,
though.
but you're getting paid $35 million to not to do your job. Like,
yeah, but it's not your money. It's not my money. So like, I'm not gonna be mad. Like if you're the GM of the Sixers or the Nets, like you might be the only person who can be mad about that. That's your financial decision. Like I don't want to count anyone else's money and be mad that he's getting paid to not do his job. That's the dream, by the way.
Yeah.
We would all do that.
I do think there is an interesting avenue off of what you were discussing. Is it appears like we're headed towards a work stoppage, citing Ben Simmons as an example. possibly withholding some of the salary cap or,
They
or
want
some of the
these
dollars.
guys. They
Yeah,
want
them
these
playing.
guys to play. They want them on the court if they're going to get paid. But what I'm asking everybody here to examine is, as the machine bounces up against some of this, as Kevin Love and DeRozan said, and everyone celebrated when it was the Players Tribune, panic attacks. Kevin Love ran off the court with a panic attack. Oh, thank you guys for being open about this. Okay, look at what they opened. Because I don't know what's true with Ben Simmons either, but when I see reporting that says mental block, and now Jessica's looking to you, Whittingham, and of course we've been contaminated and corrupted as sports fans by the business of this. It's what dehumanizes these guys. It's why we yell at them. It's why we complain. It's the biggest gulf between us and them is, quote unquote, they're playing a game and they make that. Get your ass on the court. And it's, then we don't, it's not far from shut up and dribble. Like, we start making these leaps on dehumanizing these guys and throwing things at them and having mainstream media with permission to, of course, savage Ben Simmons, because there's not a lot of precedent for this kind of unprofessional. But then I see the reporting of mental block, and I'm like, that's how we're going to talk about this. We're quoting anonymous sources, Shams, mental block, and it's like, wait, he short-circuited that human being, exhibited mental frailties and vulnerabilities that didn't allow him to be confident in the sport that he has sculpted a skill at the entirety of his life. He's smoked in the brain. Mental block. That's how we're going to cover it? Like, I don't know what's real there. They are convenient. But what is happening with Ben Simmons when if the reporting is true? What does mental block mean that his back doesn't work?
But what your tone suggests that you're lamenting something, and I would say direct some of that ire, if it is ire, towards Ben Simmons, because he could control the message. He could go out there. He doesn't owe us anything, but in the absence of that, we're going to have people like Stephen A. Smith calling him out.
My question to you is just this. It really is. Is it not obvious to you guys that he's scared?
It's very obvious that he's
scared.
Yes.
Scared of what?
I don't.
Scared to play basketball. Scared to fail.
Whatever it is that's happening that doesn't allow him to control the narrative of getting out there with information that you feel like we're owed about his mental state. Like, you're asking him, yes, Ben, quit shrinking, quit running away from the Sixers, quit avoiding your teammates, quit behaving like a child, quit being unprofessional. What are you doing? What are you doing? Grow up. Be a man. Be a professional. Don't be a coward. What are you doing? And the response is some form of, I'm scared, but I can't tell you I'm scared.
I mean, for me, he was scared to take a shot that one time against the Hawks. He certainly doesn't like taking three-pointers, but he hasn't articulated, if there is a fear there, what is it? Right now, all I know is anxiety triggers is a back ailment. That's all I know about it.
Do you think this environment, just all of it, is welcoming to the admission of, I'm scared? Or is Hall of Famer Reggie Miller going to say, yeah, you coward?
He can't say he's scared.
Fear is part of it. No, but what if he is? You're saying you can't say you're scared, but if part of the mental health conversation is about getting help.
Oh, Dan, he could say it, but that's the reaction he's going to get.
Okay, but Stugotz, you're giving your vulnerability over to people who cannot be trusted with it. I'm talking about the system, the establishment, the fans, the media, all of it, and he's not willing to do it because we're not getting information from him. So why? Why do you not know anything about Ben Simmons? Why do you not know about how he is feeling and whether he is scared? Nothing about the construct is welcoming about, yes, please heal yourself with your fears. Give us your vulnerability. Everyone pushes against it.
I don't know. I just feel like I don't really feel entitled to knowing what's going on with him. I think like maybe his employer does, but I certainly don't as a media member. I know we like, if you think about it as like a workplace issue, like if one of us came to you, Dan, and we were like, hey, I have a mental block every time we record a podcast. I am feeling anxious about it, but like I would really appreciate if you didn't tell the audience because this is personal. I don't know what's going on and I just need a break from work. I feel like you'd treat that with a tremendous amount of respect for us and empathy, and like it wouldn't become an issue. The difference is obviously he's getting paid a lot of money. He's part of an entertainment industry. He's a public figure, etc. So we don't lend those people the same amount of privacy.
I think the money's a big issue.
No, but Doc Rivers is defending his own, like at the time of self-interest, when the politician has to rise up and make sure that Doc Rivers gets future jobs. What did he do? Former athlete Doc Rivers, who would tough it out no matter what. What did he do? He's like, nope, not me. That's Ben Simmons' fault. You gave me that. How am I not going to lose?
But like we don't have to keep like asking him for more. Like we don't have to ask him why he's not the face of mental illness or anxiety or depression or whatever issue it is. If he doesn't want to give us that, like that's his own business. I don't feel like we're entitled to knowing it.
But part of the problem is he's still collecting paychecks. Like Whittingham was headed down a path where
you guys think of it as a
that's how it's
workplace
perceived,
issue,
though.
Like,
I know, but listen, if you feel that
most
awful,
workplaces aren't capped by the salary cap.
correct, and it affects your team. Like leave and go fix yourself, and then come back when you feel like you're fixed. Like that's what fans would say. I'm certain fans are saying that in Philadelphia.
And that's not what fans would do, for the record. Fans would try to get paid while they're in their athletic prime because they sign a contract.
Right, but most people, if they want to take off from work, most workplaces won't pay them in full while they step away on a year-long sabbatical. And more,
some do, though.
Some do. The NBA is one of those workplaces. But unfortunately, in the NBA, being one of those workplaces, while he tries to figure it out, that money is capped. And they can't go improve their team. Which is why I do think the money is a part of the conversation. And I would say, like, why would you asked a question, why would Ben Simmons give this vulnerability to those people, i.e., Reggie Miller, Stephen A. Smith? At this point, what's the worst that they could do? They're already calling you a coward. I think it only buys you something. I would be skeptical, though, if all of this is just for Ben Simmons to shape the narrative himself. I do want to know what the motivations are for withholding this information. Or is this some just sort of bombshell that you'll unleash at the time of your choosing? Or are you trying to profit off of this? I think it invites a lot of questions.
And it can invite those questions because the behavior is unprecedented. And while it invites those questions, I would just ask you that you ask some of them, get over whatever it is, all of the hurdles here, and there are plenty of them. Get your ass on the court. Play basketball. Everybody wants to make that living. I feel like all of us start there, just understanding the construct of sport. But he's telling us in a way that you haven't seen from a whole lot of athletes and not putting his voice on it. It's just his behavior showing it, which then becomes performance art. What does it mean? And we can't see it clearly because all our cynicisms are going to be there. It can't be seen humanely because there are so many ways to question this and just dismiss it as stupidity. But you can't just say mental block to me when this is one of the top 20 names in your sport, at least in part because he's going through this. And we're going to just skip past it as if it's not worthy of deconstruction because we're too busy yelling about how pathetic it is. It's the easiest thing in the world, Stugotz. It really is, as media coverage, to just turn up the volume again and again on this behavior, which we have not seen very much of, is asinine. It's ridiculous. It's silly. It's unprofessional. We can all agree on that. But now what? The guy still can't play and has a mental block, and one of your teams is going to try and build around him because there are only like 20 of these in the world.
But when you're saying you can't just tell me mental block, is that a complaint directed at the reporters?
I'm not, honest to God, I'm not actually complaining. I'm just begging the audience to see the humanity at the center of this because there are a lot of obstacles that get in the way of you seeing the humanity of this. He ran away from Philadelphia. There's a dude here, a giant dude in plain sight, running away from everything in his sport that pays him. We haven't seen a lot of that.
But you don't think part of the audience, after all the discussion that's been had over the years, started by Kevin Love and others, you don't think they see that with Ben Simmons? You don't think they're smart enough to recognize, hey, there's something malfunctioning there. It's not working. He has anxiety. He's afraid to fail again.
No, it's not the seeing of it. It's extending compassion toward it,
Right.
Stugotz. It's the next step.
Yeah, but you, Dan, the people who are complaining about Ben Simmons are the loudest. The ones who are defending him are the ones you're not going to hear.
But
They get drowned out.
No, but Stugotz, there's it's hard to defend. There's not a lot of places to defend this from. It's wildly unprofessional behavior. They pay him to do a job. You could step away from it, but none of us would. If we were none of us would step away from it. If you don't want it, yes, step away from it. Do you know how hard it is to step away from that when everything culturally, generationally, you've been working all your life to do this thing?
Right.
But it's hard to step away from it when you're also being paid $35 million.
Of course.
And
Right.
you have contractual obligations.
Would he be willing to step away from the $35 million to go fix himself?
I will say
Is it that important?
We've cited DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love occasionally here. They were met with overwhelming support. You buy yourself something with that. The proof is in the pudding.
Oh,
Ben
but
Simmons hasn't bought himself anything, and I don't expect him to feel like he owes the Philadelphia 76ers franchise and its fans anything, or even the Brooklyn Nets something. But in the absence of any sort of explanation, and all we have are these conveniently timed mental blocks that seem to pop up at the worst possible time for the teams he's on, you're just left with the current media landscape and how they cover him. It's exhausting.
I feel bad, but part of the conversation as well is re-entering into the NBA. What is the scenario in which you don't feel those pressures, right? And even if let's say it's
Game 1 next year,
but if it's a Tuesday night in Orlando and it's a half-filled arena, and you're like, okay, I can do this. At some point, you're going to have to go in a playoff game on the road to Philadelphia where all they want to do is boo you and treat you poorly. Like, there's going to be another moment like that. So I feel bad that Ben Simmons at some point is going to have to confront this, but it's been a year. It's been a year and he hasn't gotten there yet. And so I just don't understand, like, the construct of professional sports is not going to change in the next 6 months in the time that the next season starts. How does he overcome that?
But Whitty, do you think the first time he plays basketball again should be, after not playing for a year and everything that happened in Philadelphia, should be down 3-0 to the Celtics as a perceived savior? Because that's not good for Ben Simmons.
No, you're right.
What Amin said was the timing.
Feels awfully convenient.
The timing on the story and the convenience. Yes, Mike, I would say to you, though, you know what else is convenient? And I know all of this sounds like a defense of Ben Simmons when I'm telling you it can't be defended. Like, as professional behavior, that can't be paid for. That's not even what I'm arguing on behalf of. Because it's not like you're paid to work and maybe you can your company can care for you so much, but eventually in a salary cap sport you have to rise up to your value. That's baked into it. But when you say timing, Mike, Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan decided to do that with the timing of theirs when they decided to do it. It wasn't in the middle of a playoff series when DeRozan was at 20% when he came out with the Players Tribune article, because put the cauldron around it now. Like, it's not Kevin Love doing it in an offseason or saying, you know what, Kevin Love wasn't telling us the panic attacks before going to Minnesota. He was telling us after he'd healed it or after he had felt he'd got, like he could do something.
Felt good enough to talk about it.
Yeah, but they've played big games since. And
but what I'm saying is the timing on when you choose to do that, the last time we saw Ben Simmons, he short-circuited. The mental health conversation didn't start until they started taking away money. That's, again, convenient. But we saw the short-circuiting, correct? And you haven't seen anything like it before in your life watching basketball, have you?
I haven't seen someone pass up a dunk. I've seen plenty of people afraid to shoot.
But have you not afraid to shoot and like, oh, I think he wants to keep passing the ball. No, afraid to shoot where all of America who knows about sports is watching somebody who's a #1 overall pick who caves in defenses and creates more three-pointers than anyone ever. This person not only has a shooting weakness when he comes into the league, but that's the most scared I've ever seen a basketball player on the court.
I've never seen someone in the half court pass up an easy dunk for an assist. I've seen that in transition. He had an easy dunk in the half court. Some people are like, oh, I'll be a good teammate and I'll just get an assist here and it'll buy me something in the locker room. This was a crucial moment in the game. They ended up getting the bucket, but the basketball instinct is to just take it right up. You have an easy 2 points.
And in this world of aggression where people are decisive and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of confidence shrinking, and we who are not as confident at anything we do as these people are at what they do because of what it is that they're perfecting, one of the very best at the time that was most crucial looked like to everybody watching, that dude is scared. And the conversation hasn't gotten less hostile since then. The conversation hasn't gotten more compassionate. Only more and more things have happened to deter him from speaking his fear.
Part of those are of his own doing. I mean, he's got to stop teasing, hey, I'm coming back game 3, I'm coming back game 4, and then doesn't come back. Like, just stop talking about coming back and just come back when you're ready.
He wasn't. The Nets were. They were asked direct questions about when he was coming back. And
but I think Ben lent the voice to that.
He pointed at a reporter, at Nick Friedel of ESPN, and said, get this on camera. I'm ready to come back.
Right, don't do that.
And maybe it's just like him trying to hype himself up. Like, all right, I'm back. I'm feeling right. Like, there are rationales that are reasonable for all of the things that have happened. But like Mike said, sometimes it just feels convenient.
Yeah, he's made it worse by not talking. He made it worse. I have so much evidence that would suggest that he'd be met with compassion if he
Jessica,
were to
why are you
to
rolling
express
your
himself.
eyes?
That's bullshit.
What, you think he'd be met with more hostility than he's
I
being
think
met
he'd
with
be
now?
met with a ton of hostility.
Yeah, but he's being met
think
with
of, like-
only hostility now.
That's true.
Okay, so he does by himself. He's being met with
People aren't
zero
gonna magically
compassion.
be like, oh, now I understand mental health.
No,
like,
people are.
Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles got tons of shit
Yeah.
for what they did over the last
And they
2
also got
years
tons of
talking
support. He's getting no support.
But I don't think it makes the situation any better. Like,
Oh, I do.
I don't know. I don't know what his end game is. I don't know what's going on. I just like I don't like the conversation. I think that it's just very I don't know.
It's too
It gives me
complicated.
like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps and like cure your mental illness and get back on the court vibe, and I don't like it.
Construct of
That's all.
sports isn't changing though, and I do think he's only being met with hostility. Reggie Miller and Stephen A. Smith are speaking for damn near everyone right now.
But they're- no.
This is the most sympathy that he's garnered,
Mike,
nationally.
but they are also speaking. I think I understand what Jessica is lamenting, and it's the same thing I'm sort of giving voice to. There is room in some of this for something less than poison to land atop Ben Simmons. Look, man, we are enjoyers of the downfalls in sports of others. Mike Ryan came in happier this week because the Nets and the Sixers, who had been talked about so much more than his beloved Heat this season, both of them were hurting, at least in part because this dude is at the center of both economies. And so you don't want that taken away from you. And Reggie Miller doesn't want taken away from him the ability to just say, hey, where's your competitive fire? You coward. And Stephen A. Smith gets to turn up, ratchet up.
Reggie needs it.
Stephen A. Smith gets to ratchet up the volume. He's never ripped anybody like this. Stephen A. Smith in his 50s is ripping somebody because he's got permission. And Jessica's saying, hey, can we be nicer? And the answer is no, Jessica. The answer is no.
I tried.
I know, but not just as a show. It's everybody. It's the sports construct. Is hey, can we be nicer? And boo!
We're assholes.
Boo!
Our show has been plenty nice to Ben Simmons.
Too nice. Well, people listening to this think I'm an apologist for him, think I'm defending him, think my tone is bad.
I support Ben Simmons, and I'm just providing a very obvious other side to this.
Are we patting ourselves on the back?
We're the place where he's getting the sympathy. We're it. And it's getting exhausting.
I just said if I was a Sixers fan, I'd be outraged. If I was a Net fan, I'd be outraged.
Yes, we can extend human decency just through 2 postseasons.
And I'm not a Sixers fan or a Nets fan, so I am not outraged.
Don't like either of these teams.
There is just a limit to look. There is an expiration date on decency. 2 playoffs.